I don't have a packed agenda, actually. I want to talk a lot. I'm a product manager. My job is to talk. That's what I'm paid for. So today, I will talk about the hybrid work. What's Microsoft doing for hybrid work? How do you guys actually work? How it is changing your work? And as a product manager, how I have used some of the AI technologies to change hybrid work, right? So I will talk about the features we built for Teams. And one cool thing about them is most of them were actually built in Tallinn, so in the Estonian office. So you will get an insight into what kind of work we do in this office. Then finally, I'll talk about some of my learnings from being a product manager at Microsoft. And they are my own learnings with some stories and twists. They may be interesting to you, but let's see. So let's get started. I want to talk about myself first. I like to do that. It's easier. So I'm a GPM at Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft for the last 12 years. I came to Estonia in 2011, and I stayed here. I'm getting used to the winter still. I'm not adapted. But overall, I have 20 years of experience, that's right. I've been an engineer for most part of my career. I've developed hardcore programs. In fact, I joined Skype as a video engineer. And then sometime in 2017 or 15, I don't remember now, I switched to product management because I wanted to do the things right. As an engineer, I was doing everything according to what the computer would do, I mean, what the specs say, et cetera, et cetera. But then I wanted to influence how engineering itself is done, how products are built, right? How strategies are built. So that's why I switched to product management, and it's been very challenging, and I love it. Coming from an engineering background, I can connect with engineers. I can understand how products are being built, and I can also influence the company's roadmap. So this is all great. So that's me. How do I go? OK, evolution of work. Before I get started here, I want to know how many of you actually work out of home. Raise the hands. 50%? 50%, OK. Like every day? Who works out of home every day? 4, 5, 6, OK. 10? Good, good. See, this number will change throughout the year, depending upon the situations, right? I don't know, we're out of the pandemic, but we're not sure, right? So let's go back how work started, right? I stole this from OECD's website, and it's an interesting statistic. I didn't know that we used to work 60 to 80 hours in the Industrial Revolution, OK? That's a lot of time spent at work. Of course, these are sweatshops. So you got to go do your work, I don't know, from 7 until late in the night. But that has changed after the World Wars, right? Then the industry has adopted a 40-hour burn per week. Now, if you ask me how much hours is productive, I would say maybe 4 hours a day. That's all we can do. Or maybe even less. If I ask my kids, would you like to work? They'll say no. So maybe the future of work is nobody wants to do work. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe with all the AI coming up, some of our work will be eliminated, which means we may have to do something else creatively, right? But let's stick with this 40 hours for now, and it's a good number. But even with this 40 hours, it has become challenging after pandemic. There's some numbers I wanted to show. Being a PM, I love to throw some numbers to you guys, right? Before the pandemic, that number there, Microsoft Teams reaches 13 million users. That was in July of 2019, right? Then, you know what happened in 2020, OK? And everybody got inside the lockdown. Nobody could get out. People started working out of home. Of course, if you work in the oil rig or somewhere else, no, it's not an option. But many of us are not in that kind of jobs. So we're all office goers. So which means you could work out of home. And that saw an increase in our usage. So today, this number was just published this week, 270 million monthly active users. So that's a huge growth. That's a 20x plus growth, right? And we achieved that through the pandemic. It's the true hockey stick growth that every product aspires to have, every product manager dreams of having, right? And we got it. We got it in a way when the world was suffering, but that's natural about the work that we do. Now, with this 270 million users working out of home, working remotely, or in a hybrid way, this number is continuing to go up, right? So what do we do about these people? When you work out of home, there are certain nuances to it. And when you work remotely, let's say you're working out of the airport, or you're working out of the coffee shop, or whatever, wherever, right? There are a lot of nuances. And how do we build products, especially from Microsoft, right? When we are building this Teams, which is a collaborative tool, how do we make the best of your time when you use our product? How do we make yourself productive, even from these challenging environments, right? So this was our problem, and it was a good problem to have. So we built Teams for collaboration. So after the pandemic, we started adding features and capabilities to make your lives better, to work out of home, to work anywhere, right? So we'll talk about those things now. All right. This is some boring definition. What's hybrid work? When we say remote work, people work remotely. That's all true. What's hybrid work is where you can actually work. You can have a choice. I want to go to the office and work today. Good. I can work out of home today. Good. I can work out of the coffee shop. Good. But I should still be able to do everything that I'm allowed to do. And the software and the environment should not stop me from doing that. So that's the whole idea of hybrid work. So how do we enable that? Through Microsoft Teams. Okay. Some models here. The way you have to look at it is, some companies, they still want people to come fully in the office, okay? And some companies, like Microsoft, we are very flexible. We're on the first model. It's up to you and the managers to actually choose which model is appropriate for the person. You may choose to work 3 days from the home and 2 days from the office. Or like me, I just work every day from home. Sometimes I go to the office to say hi to people. But that's about it. Because I forget them, so I want to go and see them. So that's why I go once a while. Then there are, models where you could fixate on something. You have to come every Wednesday to the office. You have to come every Monday to the office, something like that. So companies are trying out different models now because nobody wants to go back to office. 87% of the people who they probed said they don't want to go back to the office environment. It's inconvenient. You guys live in a home where it probably is close to your gym or the activities that you do. You can walk your dog in the mornings and whatnot, right? But if you go to the office, that means you're wasting your time on the commute. People realized, this is really bad. After the COVID, the pandemic, people have evaluated life choices, and they have picked up healthy habits now, more healthier habits, right? And one thing is, I want to avoid the commute to the office. This is one of those things. So what does it mean for companies? If 87% of the people are saying that, hey, I don't want to go to the office, what do I do now? How do I model my work environment? How do I still trust this employee that he or she can do this work? So that's where the complexity comes in. And that's where we are building all the tools and technologies to help this sort of workforce. But with that, there is also a challenge. How many of you guys have back-to-back meetings? When you work out of home, some are focused. If you're an engineer, you're on focused work. You have your daily stand-up, you're done, and then you have your focused work. But me, I'm a product manager. My job is being in meetings, and it burns me out. So I guess many of you are also in the same boat, right? And what happens is that too many meetings will tire you. In fact, in my LinkedIn, I posted some time back that how back-to-back meetings decrease the size of your brain. It is true. That some studies said that. And I told my boss, look, this is how my work is impacting me. So we said, OK. So we said, every time you schedule a meeting in Outlook, it actually gives you an opportunity to say, hey, don't put it like 1 hour meeting. You could put it for 55 minutes or 45 minutes or something like that. So you get like some breaks between each meetings. This way, you can help yourself. But that's a challenge by remote work or hybrid work. all these hallway conversations that you have with your colleagues are gone. So that increases the load on the number of meetings you take, right? And if you use Teams, there are ways by which you can avoid the burnout. Nowadays, when I open Teams, it's already telling me, hey, the person that you're trying to chat with is not in your time zone. Please be aware that you won't get the response immediately. It's a good reminder for everyone that when you're a remote workforce, it's telling you this person has not gotten up yet, and don't expect an immediate response, right? So these are things that were simple things that we're building to help the people. All right. Teams. How many of you actually use Teams? I really wish that all the hands go up. Okay, that's great. That's great. If your organization doesn't use Teams, convince them after this presentation, right? So Teams, as you know, it's a collaborative tool. It helps you organize online meetings. You can chat with your colleagues. You could host your files and whatnot. This is how we see Microsoft's Office 365 window, right? Teams is our window into Office 365 today. That's why a lot of focus is happening here. And I'm happy to also say that much of the services are also built in the Estonian Microsoft Development Center. Estonia is one of our key strategic places where several business-critical investments are being brought in. So if you're interested in working for us, please reach out to me or to anybody in the Microsoft booth, and we'll find some better opportunities for you. All right. Now, this is the pick of my 5 top features that my team worked on with Teams. And I'll talk about the story behind them, why we developed them, and I also recommend you to check it out if you are using Teams sometime. I'll have Q&A at the end, so if you have your questions, write them down. I'm happy to answer your questions. All right, first one, avatars. The team actually who built this are engineers from Tallinn, Stockholm, and Redmond. So the reason why we built it is because, when you have a meeting at 9 a.m. and you wake up at 8:45, you might have not even brushed your teeth, okay? But you have to be in the meeting. And everybody is turning on their video, and you don't want to be on video, okay? Obviously. It's your first meeting of the day, and you're not really ready. So a lot of people actually complained, and we looked at the data, right? How many people enable video in their meetings? The data went up, and then it's saturated. And at some point, it even went down. So what was the reason behind it? So we realized that many people got super comfortable at home. They're not really willing to turn on video because they are still in their pajamas throughout the day, or they're just not feeling comfortable at all. Maybe they're sick or whatever, right? So we thought, okay, why don't we build these avatars? Why don't we give them some fancy animation so that they don't need to show their face, but some artificial face that they like, that they put up in their profile, right? And this was a very good feature, and a lot of people loved it. A lot of people started using it. So if you haven't used it, try it out. It's actually very nice. It mimics everything from your face. So this is one of those feature which, connecting back to hybrid work, right? Now, as I mentioned in the first few moments of this talk, that our job at Microsoft with Teams is to make your life easier when you are doing this remote work or hybrid work or wherever you're working from, right? So this is one of my favorite features. Let's move on. This is the other one, meetings recap. How many of you miss meetings, knowingly or unknowingly? Nobody misses a meeting. Just one. You miss meetings? Good. I always miss meetings because I have too many of them. So how many of you miss taking notes in a meeting? That's a lot, you see? You see, that's why we build this technology. So it will automatically take notes for you. How it works, because we know what you're speaking. We have transcriptions. We have speech to text. And then from that speech to text, our AI will make notes, will make action items. Okay, that's what the AI-generated tasks are about. And so you don't really have to do anything. Just join the meeting and then talk about the things or present the things, and then the software will take care of everything for you, right? So that's one. The second thing is if you miss a meeting, and this happens if you work cross time zones, like me. My colleagues are spread across the world. We're based out of US, as you all know, India, China, and many parts of Europe. What that means is certain meetings are very hard to get in because they are scheduled in a time that I'm not able to join, probably by midnight or very early morning. Then I'm not able to join those meetings. So what happens? So then I wake up. I've missed some of the important conversations. How do I catch up very quickly? You don't want to go and watch the 1 hour meeting again for an hour. That's wasting your time, right? Do you watch sports highlights? If you miss sports, I don't know what sports you follow, but if you follow some sports, and Olympics, let's say, and then you missed that game, and you want to go watch the highlights, you don't want to watch the entire game because it's boring. Right? So is for meetings. If you miss the meeting, you don't want to watch the entire meeting. That's like 1 hour. Why? But let's AI help us. Just tell the AI, there is a meeting recap feature where you can tell it, tell me all the places where my name got mentioned. It'll tell. And you can actually go to that place and see who talked about you, behind you, in the meeting, without you, right? And you can get all that information. And it's also easy. We want to integrate that with Cortana as well later. So for example, if you're driving in the car and then in the morning, this meeting happened in your midnight, and you want to quickly get information about, hey, what did this CVP tell about this acquisition, right? So you're asking an interactive question with this, right? And it's going to tell you this information back to you. You do not need to go and watch the recording anymore. So we're trying to make all this available to you so you don't have to miss a meeting. Like, oh, I missed the meeting, so I missed the information. So you will get the information anyway. Isn't this cool? I'll tell you, most of that is actually built in Tallinn. The recording and transcriptions, the core of how this actually works is built in Tallinn. They're all my engineers. They're a very nice engineering team. OK, let's move on. Translations. How many of you are native speakers here? Native English speakers. Native speakers does it. OK, native English speakers, not native Estonian speakers. OK, none. So that's a problem. I'm not a native English speaker either. I did study in English from my childhood, but I'm not a native speaker. But sometimes when you're in a meeting, and then these native speakers, they can use some language, or you're not in the mood of listening, you may miss the words. So then what we decided to do is let's have translations, right? So you could translate that to your language. I think we support about 32 languages right now, or 40, 40 spoken languages. Estonian is still not there yet. I know there have been requests. We're working on it. I don't know when it will be out, but that's a request. But we have many of the European languages. We have some of the Asian languages. So if you speak one of them, you could actually translate anybody's voice into this language. So it's like watching a movie with subtitles, right, in your preferred language. This is all for you to work easily. Because when you go to the office, when you meet some people, you can understand their gestures, you can understand their emotions, you can understand what they are saying easily. In a meeting, it's very hard. So that's why these technologies are helping you to get there, okay? Again, this is also being built in Tallinn, and I'm really proud. I'm also the PM for this. Because I'm the PM for this, I want to go and advertise my features. Shameless promotion, but that's what I do. All right, let's move on. Office Live. This is something that was recently announced. You could edit any of the Office documents in a meeting. Earlier, how people used to do that is they edit it, they share the screen, and then one person will edit, everybody will just say, hey, don't do this, don't do that, right? But now, you could do collaborative editing. So you could share the file in the meeting, and everybody can actually collaboratively edit. This is for Excel. Same applies for Word. For PPT, you can't do collaborative editing, but you can do PPT live presentations. So we wanted to bring this because a lot of people said that they want to have this functionality. We are doing all these Office documents, but we have to switch away from Teams, so it's inconvenient for us. So then we decided, okay, let's bring this inside the product itself. So if you haven't used it, try it out. Okay, this last one is not really Teams, but it's one of my pet peeves because we also worked on this. This is the new model of computing that Microsoft is actually pushing for. With remote work, what happens is this. When the pandemic started, you got probably a laptop from your IT department. And then the pandemic continued for a year and a half or maybe even 2 years. And you still had an outdated laptop, isn't it? And that's becoming slower and slower and slower and slower, and you don't want to use it anymore. What if you buy the latest hardware for your home? I know Apple launched some nice Mac Minis. I'll get one. And you could use Windows 365 to access your company's services, right? So that's the idea. So it's called Cloud PC. Think about your PC sitting in the cloud, and you get a window to it from your own laptop or PC or Mac or tablets or phone, whatever. This way, your access of documents is secure, so you don't need to download that to your computer. It's all there in the cloud, right? And IT departments love it because they say, hey, finally, we can control the documents. We can control the information, how our information is not leaked, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one interesting approach of computing. So no more IT departments are interested in buying hardware. They want to give you a dumb terminal, or they're asking you to bring your own hardware to the office. And then they will get this license for Windows 365, and then you can use a cloud PC. Okay? This is a trend I wanted to talk about. We worked on this from Tallinn because we built Teams for this, because Teams has to work in the cloud PC. But the problem when you put Teams in the cloud PC is that if all your audio video is going to the cloud and then again coming back to you, there's a lot of latency. So we have to optimize that. So what we decided to do is, when you use Teams in a cloud PC, the audio and video will directly come to your laptop instead of going to the cloud. So that's all the work we did. It's interesting, just check it out in the internet. You should be able to easily find it. Okay, those are the 5 top features that I loved, that my team worked on, and I'm proud about them. Now I'll talk about the learnings from product management. And these are my own learnings with my own twist, with some insights into how we develop products at Microsoft. Okay? And it's not the only way. Microsoft is a huge organization. Developing enterprise software is not easy. Every group has its own methodology. Every group has its own way of building products. And we have our own way of building products in teams. And within teams, there are also different groups. So we all have our own methodology. Mostly, it all works. Okay? Right. This is my first one. Evaluate through user studies. How many of you are product managers here? I don't know, because this is more like engineering plus. Okay. So how many of you do user studies? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Okay. That's good. So if you don't do user studies, what happens? You will build crappy products, right? You will build something like, if you look at a software like Teams, there's so many options. There's so many options. So if you build a feature, and if your user doesn't even use it, then you will be like, you would have failed. And the reason why they wouldn't have used it is because they don't know where it is. So that's the first problem, the discoverability of the feature, right? So how do you make this user aware of that? So you run user studies to understand the pain and the frustrations of users. Okay, when you say something like this, does it behave the way the users want it, right? So you have to run it. This is our first approach to product. When we have ideas, we don't go crazy. Oh, let's go implement it and then let's get it out. No. When we have ideas, we evaluate them through our users. We actually first talk to them about it. We create some mockups. We probe a few of our customers. We probe a few of new users. And then we tell them, if you do this, would you like it? Would you like to test it out? And then they say, yeah, you know what? Why don't we do it? And then we do it. And then they won't like it because something else we missed. But that's OK. The first study was useful. And then we iterate on it. And then later, we get it right. If you get it right for 80% of the users, that's already good. You can't satisfy 100% of your users. It's just not possible. It's like you being, can you make everybody in the world happy? No, it's not possible. So can you make all of your users happy? You can try. You can try. Get it 80% right, that's already good. So user studies, this is one important thing. Next, measure what you can. We collect a lot of telemetry, not for selling ads, okay? We don't do that. But we collect a lot of telemetry to understand how the product itself is being used. If somebody clicks a button and then the product crashed, we know, okay, something happened with this button. Something happened after that. Some code path crashed it. So this is one. This is one way of using the telemetry. Or you can say, people are trying to join the meeting, they're waiting, and then they don't join the meeting. Why? We don't know. But we can see that they clicked this, and then they're waiting, they didn't join. So we could get all those insights and see, okay, maybe the joining time took longer, maybe something else happened. So if you got to put telemetry everywhere to understand the user behavior. If you don't understand your user behavior, you will only, the 270 million users that I showed previously will drop. We will not have that number. And we will not even aspire to grow that number because we have to measure. And not just the actions. When we roll out new features, we do A/B testing. I guess most of you are aware of A/B testing. We don't just roll out to production and test it in production. We're not that brave. Let's roll it out to production and test it there, right? I know there are a lot of memes in the internet where they do that. But if Microsoft does it, that's it. We've lost that users, and there will be lawsuits and stuff like that. So what we do, we do A/B tests. And through A/B tests, we understand whether the feature that we are developing and rolling out is good for the users, right? If we see a positive intake, then we continue the rollout. So measure, do A/B tests. This is the second thing. Let's move on. Don't forget the engineering. Yeah. I come from engineering, so I don't forget it, and I don't forget them. But there are certain basics when you have to do when you're a product manager. With time pressure, right, if you have a deadline and you have to meet the deadline, do not take shortcuts. Please don't do that. If you do that, you will put so much of technical debt on the team. You will not have a good architecture to start with. And if you have a very bad architecture, what happens is that it won't scale. Luckily, we built a software that could scale, so when the pandemic hit us, we could scale the service very efficiently and very quickly. If we had invested in a very wrong architecture, we couldn't have done that. So in a similar way, I'm talking about the global scale, but in every single feature, think about the architecture. Think about how it will serve you today and how it will serve you tomorrow. If you're going to take shortcuts, it's going to come back and bite you. And the second thing, what works today might stop working tomorrow. This is true for any large product. If you have so many features and so many engineers are contributing to it, today some feature might be working, and then 6 months down the line, it may have stopped working and you wouldn't even notice. But if you measure what you can, then you could see that in your trends, and you could see that in your dashboards. You could have automated alerting telling you, somebody stopped using this, right? But even before that, even before your user comes and cries to you, you can catch it by tests. So please ensure that you have tests written for your software. Make sure that these are all part of your engineering process, part of your product development process. Then finally, keep engineers happy so they can keep your users happy. If you don't, then they will go to somewhere else. So it's a very simple thing. How you keep them happy is your problem, but just keep them happy. Right? Okay, the fourth one, make it work for everyone. We develop software for the global scale. Our software gets used by many people around the world, 24/7, and are used by differently enabled people. So that means we have to make sure our software works for everybody. If you're colorblind, let's say, and you put a lot of colors in the UI, people can't see it, okay? So there's no point in doing that. So you have to evaluate, okay, how is my UI going to be seen? What we have done is, can everybody, for example, if you're in a meeting and somebody may have hearing issues, how can we help them, right? How can we make sure that this meeting is useful for those kind of people? So build technologies that is useful for everyone that's using your product. Do not assume that people are using product just like you, right? Model everyone. And that'll help you to scale your product. That'll help you to be just good as a company and as a product manager. Okay, this is the last one. Write everything down. We used to have a culture where we did not write everything down. We were all about, I don't know, PPTs and stuff like that. And finally, we changed. We started documenting a lot. We started writing down every business decision. We started writing out every idea. And when we started writing things down, and this is my own group. Every group does it differently, so I'm talking about my own group. We learned that while we write things down, we understood that this idea is crap. You can already see that. When you put that in the words, the next day you read it yourself, and it's like, oh my God, this is so nonsense, right? So write it down. You know, it helps you understand what you're thinking about a problem, what the business can think about the problem. And in general, it helps to communicate with others better. So you can send this document to your coworkers and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then they'll give you feedback. You know, this is good, this is not good. We can improve here. So do that. You know, it really helps. It helped our company, it helped our group very much. So today, if I go to my boss and say, I have a crazy idea, they will say immediately, you know, give me the document, write it up. So we have a template. So we follow that template, and then we write up, okay, here's how we can make money from this. Now, here's how we can make money from this in 10 years, whatever, the projection, and here's the cost of building this, here's the risk of not doing this, whatever, write it down. And actually, I want to know, how many of you guys know about PRFAQ? One? Does anyone know about this PRFAQ? Oh, just one. Okay, good. Then I can talk about it. PRFAQ stands for Press Release FAQ. It's an Amazon concept. Amazon has this idea that if you go and say, I want to build this, they start from how you would announce it to the press. Okay? Let's say you're building a washing machine. You have to start from, hey, here's a press release for this washing machine. This washing machine will have blah, 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 and it'll do this for you, that for you, whatever. So you write it down. And then the FAQ for that. Some of the questions, what usually people will ask. So when you're building a feature, if you do this PRFAQ, you're thinking about the customers first. You're not thinking about the engineering problem. You're not thinking about cool UI. You're thinking about how the customers will perceive it, right? So you're actually taking the mindset of a marketing person right now. And it's important, because you're eventually going to sell this feature, right? So the PRFAQ is very important. Go to the internet, search, there's a template for it. It helped my thinking as a product manager. So every time I came up with something, I thought about how it will impact the customers first. So I wrote it down. Okay, press release. Microsoft is launching this, whatever, XYZ on this time. It helps the users like this, blah, 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 with some testimonials some projected testimonials from customers. Somebody used this feature and they loved it so much, and they bought this license and whatnot, right? So think about the customers first. So when you write the PR FAQ, it will help you model that behavior. It helped me as a product manager. Then our 6-pagers, for every document we write 6 pages. It's a common practice across the industry in enterprise software. We have to write that. In an agile company, I don't know, we used to be, back then when we were Skype, we called ourselves agile, and we didn't write anything down. We only wrote code, okay? I was an engineer back then, so I know what we did. The writing down was not a practice back then. But now it has changed, and I can see why it is important. People may leave the company, people may join, newcomers will come, and people will come and go, but the product will survive, so writing down is important. I think those are my top 5 learnings. If you want to know more, you can reach out to me. That's my LinkedIn QR code. By the way, I'm also hiring, shamelessly promoting my role. So I want to hire a PM, so if you are interested, write to me or come and talk to me during this day. I'm available. But that's it. I'm going to open the session for question and answers. Yeah. Yep, go.
Hello, my name is Diana. Thank you so much for this speech. It was very interesting to learn all these stories behind your famous products. And I was wondering, so Microsoft kind of makes users to use products inside the ecosystem, right? It's the main goal, like to keep user using the same products of the same manufacturer, to keep them satisfied and improve usability. And I wonder, for your work as a product manager, do you use products of other companies for your work, or you tend to use only Microsoft products?
That's a good question. Sorry?
Now you need to answer politically correct to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Politically correct. Let's say Microsoft correctness. See, we as a company don't stop people from using, let's say, different hardware, okay? It's not like everybody has a Surface laptop. You could use a Mac, right? And because our software needs to work on the Mac as well. Our software needs to work on the Android phone as well, on the iOS as well, and whatnot, right? So there's no such boundaries. But when it comes to work documents and stuff, our company SharePoint is important, so we have to put it there because of compliance reasons and stuff. And it may be different from company to company. It's the company's policies. Your company may want to use other products as well, and it's fine. As long as your admins agree that the compliance boundary is safe, then it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Gentleman in front.
Thank you, Keerthi. My question is whether you have an opinion on so if the trend is going more hybrid, then some of the big corporations and the CEOs of big corporations resist this and even want people to come back to the office. So how would you see that or comment on this?
Okay, so that's also a good one. And yes, I have opinions. I'm highly opinionated. So, the leaders of the organizations can force this, but if the market is saying something else, right, you cannot demand a workforce that will then comply to that. So if you're, let's say, there's a super smart engineer or PM that we want to hire, right? And there are two competing companies. And one company is saying, you got to come to the office. And the other company is saying, I offer you flexible time, remote work, right? And who's going to benefit? Definitely the company who's going to offer that flexible time is going to benefit, right? They are going to hire this talent. So if organizations are going to choose to be very strict about this hybrid work policy, they are going to lose eventually in the long run. So it's something that they have to think about. Again, it may be different from industries to industries. If you're in a very highly regulated industry, then it may be difficult. But again, we're working towards building that trust boundary and safety and security. So folks like that could also work from home. For example, people working in the financial industries, right? But in general, the trend is it's hybrid work. That's it. Once we have shown people that they can work out of home and be productive, now we've shown the way. That's it. They're not going to come back. Not as much as they used to do before the COVID.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes, that gentleman in the back there.
Hi there.
Hi.
Have you had experience with large portion of your employees doing remote work, and while you're restructuring the company or major changes in how the work is organized, what teams are, any challenges there, or?
So if I get your question right, what are the challenges in having the remote work, or?
Yeah, exactly. Remote work, I think, doesn't it introduce tensions? I don't understand what's going on because things are, shifting around, changing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is a common challenge with remote work, right? And it's one of the biggest ones. But if you organize your teams in a way that they can operate remotely, right? If you have a large team, let's say 50 people working in the same project, right? And then they have to all get into the same meeting, yeah, that's going to complicate things. But if you make sure that you have an organizational structure that can support remote work, where you have one team collaborating locally, and then another team, let's say, waking up when this team is going to sleep, then they can still exchange information asynchronously. They don't need to have these online meetings. Or maybe they can have an overlap for an hour or two in a day, and then they can have these meetings. But in general, yes, that's a challenge. And then that goes back to how you structure your organization. For remote work to work fine, you cannot also operate in the mindset that 50 people are going to work in the same project. They can, but then you have to divide it in a nice way. Otherwise, it won't scale, right? It's like you have to divide the units, divide and conquer. That's basically it. It's a mindset. You have to adapt that mindset. Otherwise, this will fail very easily.
All right, then we have 20 seconds left, so I will ask you a super short question, even though I had planned a fantastic question. Like, I really wanted to know, how do you manage with scaling when your product growth was exponential during pandemic, and then users started flowing in, but I will keep that question later off the stage. So I will ask you about, what is your personal intake on the remote work? Like, how do you feel about people spending so much time in a computer versus going out? And like, how do you manage it as a manager?
I think remote work is a blessing, I would say, because you could manage your personal time really well. You don't need to work like 8 hours in a row. You could say, I'm talking about flexible work. You could manage your mornings like this, and then you could go play sports in the afternoon. Then you can come back and work. Of course, you're going to miss working with the colleagues directly. Then you could have this mindset where, okay, I can go to the office once or twice a week, or once a week, or once a month, whatever, right? So I think remote work, or flexible work, or hybrid work is here to stay, and I'm a big fan of it. In fact, I don't go to the office at all. I just work probably once a month in the office, yeah.
Oh, well, great. Thank you so much for your presentation, and let's give it for Keerthi Shankar Sekar. Yep.